it's almost time to go. See the old Wilson shut his gate, Henry Cartwright crossing home. Come on, lads, there's nothing late, morning black and cold. Kettles boiled and your cocoa's brewed, you find a barn on Salad. Daylight's breaking over still. Come on, lad, it's time for mill.
The valley of the Cressbrook is deep and sheltered, and in 1763, when John Baker, a hosier of Lytton, leased the land, it had become overgrown. Baker cleared the undergrowth and cultivated watercress beds in the stream, and so successful was he that the name Cressbrook superseded the older name of Grassbrook. Between the rocks on the hillside he planted fruit and filbert trees, and on the flatter ground which slopes down to the River Wye, beds of lavender and peppermint. In 1779, Richard Arkwright, a Lancashire industrialist and inventor of spinning machinery, took over the lease, and in 1783 employed William Newton, a joiner and millwright, to erect a mill. On the 15th of November 1785, a great fire swept through the 2-year-old building, occasioned, the Derby Mercury stated, by a lighted candle falling among some waste cotton. Arkwright rather unreasonably held Newton responsible and dismissed him out of hand, and more than somewhat out of pocket. The gutted building stood empty for 2 years before rebuilding was started, and the restored mill finally leased to Edmund Baker and Barker Bosley. They ran the business with declining fortunes until bankruptcy overcame them in 1808. In 1814, William Newton started on an expansion of the works by adding the great Wye Mill building and the present apprentice houses, the construction being paid for by influential friends. The 60-foot width of the Wye Mill was spanned by single wooden joists, an unprecedented achievement for a wooden beam building, and at that time it was the largest span in Europe. January 1815 saw the start of production at the new mill, and from the beginning Cressbrook had to depend on parish apprentices because of the isolation of the site and the nature of the country. Accommodation for these poor unfortunates was provided in the attic of the mill, where at night they huddled under the eaves of a draughty roof, bearing the rigours of the changing seasons, and also in the special accommodation of the apprentice houses opposite the mill, where they at least slept dry and warm. In the 1780s, wagon loads of pauper children from orphanages and workhouses in London and the South were transported to the water-powered cotton mills of the North. It could be argued that young workers were taken from areas where they were redundant to areas where they were needed. This was true, and it was also true that there were many responsible masters, but the system was abused by bad employers seeking cheap labour. In 1835, 5 years after the death of William Newton, the McConnells bought the Cressbrook estate from the then owners Francis and Phillips. 2 years later, the first cornerstone of Cressbrook Hall was laid, a road was built through the village, and the clock was installed in the Wye Mill to mark Queen Victoria's accession to the throne.
Oh, and the clock, well, it's always been the main thing, for the mainstay for the village. It's been the timepiece for the village, and especially the striking part, because you could hear it all around the village. And it's been stopped now for about a couple of months, I should say, and we don't know at the moment how to get it striking, but it's been one of the main things for the village life. This has the mill itself and everything connected with it.
In 1874, the mill was let to Athurst and Hutton, and again it changed hands in 1882 when the Gregg brothers became tenants. By now it was used only for weaving, other processes being undertaken elsewhere. In 1897, the McConnells, who still owned the lease, installed a water-powered electric generator, and with great foresight ran cables up to the village, which as a result became one of the first in England to be lit by electricity. The original fittings, although rusted and disused, can still be seen jutting out from the corners of the stone houses.
And we used to have it put on when it went dusk at night, and it was switched off at 11 o'clock at night. And at weekends there was a chap had to come down specially to see to it, to switch it off at 11 o'clock, and then we had to turn to either candles or paraffin oil lamps.
During 1897, a Mrs. Worthington, a local lady of some note, installed a small water wheel just above the mill, and with it pumped water from the river by pipeline up the steep sides of the valley to a reservoir which in turn supplied the village. This became a great luxury for the villagers, who no longer had to rely on the temperamental local wells, which in summer were apt to be sporadic in their output of water. The remains of this wheel can still be seen together with the pipeline, now, like the electrical fittings, rusted and disused. In 1903, Matthew Dickey acquired the mill after seeing it advertised on a railway hoarding. He found weaving to be uneconomic and rebuilt part of the original Arkwright mill to take cotton doubling machinery, extending the lower sheds at the rear and adding skylights to take better advantage of natural light. The enlarged premises allowed for a considerable increase in production and staff, and once again the mill thrived as it had done 70 years before. In 1905, a new boiler was installed to cope with the different processes, and the chimney we can see today was erected by one man in only 3 weeks. Behind the boiler house is the turbine shed, built in 1912 to replace the water wheel, which could not cope with the enormous demands for electricity, caused not only by the increase in the output of cotton, but also by the developing needs of the village population. Today, these leaking and broken scraps of metal present us with a unique link back to the early days of electrical power, which was to push Cressbrook into the 20th century. outbreak of the First World War heralded a period of tremendous prosperity for the doubling industry, and Cressbrook was no exception, sometimes working 3 shifts a day to keep up with the demand for cotton. However, in complete contrast to the boom time of the war years, 1919 brought a reversal of fortunes, and the mill was forced to cut back labour to only 1 shift a day. "1922 brought the electric grid, which marked the final break with the 19th century feudalism, where everyone was dependent on the mill and its owners. Electricity now controlled the pulse of the nation, and for a short time there was great prosperity. However, the years of plenty were soon to be clouded by the Great Depression, and Cressbrook fell victim like so many others. By 1938, Matthew Dickey had gone bankrupt. But fortunately for Cressbrook, his son came to his aid, independently buying the mill from his father, and so continuing the Dickey ownership.
Mr. Bingham, you started work here in 1922. Perhaps you could give us a brief description of what life was like then.
I started here on 11 shillings and a penny a week. And that was for 7:45 in the morning till 5:30 at night, 5 days, and 7:45 till 12 Saturday. And we was what they called a layer on with on the doubling machines. And then all the machines were running with 38 doubling machines, and I should say there's about 8 bottle winding machines, and I think there was 3 women on each side of a machine, which made 6 on a machine. Then there was the cop winding. That's where the job started, in the cop winding room. Then it went on to the doubling, from the doubling onto the bottle winding, from the bottle winding into the gassing room, and from the gassing room into the reeling room, and then down into the warehouse to be packed and go away.
The doubling process continued under the Dickey name until finally in 1964 the mill was sold to Qualitex, the present owners, who, finding the processes uneconomic, closed down the plant. From its closure in 1964 until today, it has been used as a warehouse, although because of its poor structural state, only the ground floor is used.
Does the poor state of it now worry the villagers at all?
Well, it does, yes. It worries us all, especially working under it, because the queen beams in the building have gone, according to the architect when he came round.
Which beams are these? These roof beams?
Yes, the main roof beams. There are 2, one here and the one over there. The 2 mainstays, and they've gone right at the end where they go onto the top of the building, and they're gradually rotting away with the water getting in.
Today, this fine building, which has changed little since the beginning of the 19th century, stands empty and in a way rather sad. The impressive facade, which has seen so much industrial and social change, is today weathered and crumbling, and despite the preservation order, looks set to become a fine ruin.